All right, so we've actually had a pretty mini-sized update today. We've got a new premium superstore rotation. This is the Killzone collaboration, and they did call it a premium superstore rotation, as you can see by the prices. If my calculator skills are on point, we are at a total of 1,975 super credits. This is the price of 2 war bonds for this Killzone collab. Now, we've actually got quite a few stuff to talk about. There was a very small patch today. They left a Discord message going over the superstore rotation. Pilestedt sent a tweet talking about how they're going to prevent FOMO with this stuff. And on top of that, we have a Wasp Launcher in the game, which I had no idea was coming. It is a new stratagem weapon. It is free on illuminate planets right now, and I'm sure, I don't know how we're going to unlock it. They didn't tell us whether it's going to be through a major order. And I'm curious if we're going to unlock it through a major order, because we do have to do the major order for the cars first. And then I also tried out the primary weapon, the armor passive, and the Wasp Launcher from this collaboration. I'm going to give you guys reviews of all the stuff. Now, first, I think we should load up the Discord, and I will read their message about this collaboration, how they're going to prevent FOMO. I'll just show you guys the patch notes real quick. It was literally just a few crash fixes. And now I'll read this to you guys while I play some Wasp Launcher gameplay in the background. That way you guys can get a feel for what that does. All right, so Mitchimus, a new community manager, I think, says, "Greetings, Helldivers. We hope you're having an awesome time with the Omens of Tyranny and are busy maintaining sweet liberty in a star system near you by offering the undemocratic Illuminate hordes another way of life, death. To celebrate your heroics in liberating the voteless from their tortured existence, we're bringing to the table our first official crossover, and it's a super cool one. We decided a long time ago to do crossovers only if and when they make perfect sense for the game, so in that spirit, we're hyped to announce our very first crossover, Killzone 2. Helldivers 2 times Killzone 2 belongs to a new tier of special premium content reserved for collaborations and other uniquely themed work. Our plan is to offer you something distinct and special. High Command informs us that beyond the Superstore content, there's also an additional Killzone 2 reward for all Helldivers, depending on your success in the Galactic War. Now, anyone let me know in the comments if the Wasp Launcher has anything to do with Killzone, because I'm curious about what the reward is, or if that's just something else completely that we haven't seen yet. Anyways, they then said, "Meanwhile, on the subject of the Superstore, in the interest of relentless democracy, we regularly run surveys on Discord and Reddit. Based on your feedback, we feel we can improve how the Superstore currently works. Right now, many of you feel the items are in rotation for too short of a time, and that you sometimes miss out on that killer look you had your eyes on. At the same time, the more things we add to the store, the longer it takes to come back into rotation. As we're not quite ready to roll out a full redesign, we're going to temporarily test longer rotations with Killzone, which will stick around for 5 days per page instead. There will be 2 pages of items to explore. After this, the page rotation will go back to its usual cadence, and we will be asking for your feedback on our test. If you think this is too short or you want us to look into bringing items back for longer periods, we'll ask again in future surveys. Have fun, turn back those Illuminate incursions and give them hell. P.S. Here's part 1, which is out now. The second part will be landing in the Superstore on December 23rd. All right, so on top of that, Pilestedt actually responded to someone on Twitter. They asked, will this be added to the rotation cycle if we don't get it now? And he said yes, and we're updating the Superstore to ensure that there's permanence in some form. The rotation is getting a bit too long. So I do feel he responded to this with the intent of sort of shutting down any sort of FOMO. If you don't buy this stuff now, it will come back later. I mean, that's obvious, that's a given. However, they will be updating the Superstore so that there are some more permanent options to it. So first up, let's just talk about the pricing. Now, they did call this a premium crossover war bond, so for what it's worth, I would be inclined to believe that these higher prices are reserved for any time they do any sort of crossovers. With that being said, in terms of just on a pure value proposition, the price of this Superstore page is the price of 2 different war bonds. If you don't have any of the war bonds unlocked, I would buy any war bond before I bought anything on this page. So we might as well first talk about the assault rifle. It's got a damage of 70, which is the same as the Liberator. It's got a pretty big capacity at 56. It actually has really solid recoil, and then it has much higher fire rate than the Liberator. Now, the other thing about this gun, which you might have noticed from the background, but it doesn't have a long-range scope, so it is more so a, more so like a mix between an assault rifle and an SMG. although it doesn't have any sort of crazy recoil. The reload speed from empty is not super short either. It is a relatively long reload. It feels like maybe 3-4 seconds. However, if you do reload early with the tactical reload, it's not that long. I would actually recommend, if you did want to get this gun, which I do not think this gun is worth 600 super credits, but if you did want to get it because you like assault rifles, then probably wear it with the reload speed armor and the extra mags. Now, the armor, on the other hand, is actually pretty cool. The new armor passive is, sorry for the blurry picture, but it is 50% resistance to fire, gas, acid, and electrical damage. So it's pretty much 50% resistance to all of the resistances on top of acid. Now, this armor, I tested it. I walked in fire. I actually fully survived a fire tick. So, like, if you get randomly set on fire in this armor, you kind of don't have to worry that you're going to die instantly. Now, if you're already damaged and you're already pretty low, you should probably stim as soon as possible. I do not really like this armor for gas. Obviously, you would live in gas compared to if you weren't wearing this armor. But if I was going a gas loadout, I would just wear the heavy gas resistance armor because that makes you immune from gas. The acid resistance actually seems pretty useful against bugs because, you know, that's the faction that shoots acid. And then the electrical damage, that is arcs. Now, I did walk really close to a harvester and I got arced by him, and I survived an arc. Now, it left me pretty low. You wouldn't be able to survive 2 arcs, at least not in this armor set. This is medium armor, but it will allow you to survive at least getting Tesla'd once. I actually do think it's not half bad. Now, again, from a value and price perspective, I am not really into super high-priced microtransactions, especially when it comes to cosmetics. The primary weapon I definitely do not recommend getting. There's nothing special about it, in my opinion. It's not even that good, and it's 600 super credits. The armor is interesting. If you are willing to shell out the 500 super credits for it, then I do think it is actually pretty solid, and I'm gonna be honest, the helmet is super cool. Personally, I bought the primary weapon to test it, the armor to test it, and then I actually did buy the helmet because it was super cool. Now, pretty much the only thing I'll say on this topic, if you do not like the higher prices in the superstore, then do not buy them because they have all kinds of spreadsheets of, you know, how many sales they get on certain things. If there is a lower turnout for sales on these items, then they will probably be cheaper in the future. That's just how it works. You can whine about it all you want on social media, but if you buy this, then there's no point in whining. Now, personally, I don't think Arrowhead raised all these prices. I think given that it's Killzone, which is a PlayStation IP, and PlayStation also owns Helldivers, this honestly smells like Sony. They've had a pretty rough year with, you know, Concord, and I think they've also had a couple of other game failures this year. And they even raised the prices on the new PlayStation console, I'm pretty sure. This one really does smell like Sony, in my opinion. I think Arrowhead would have just released a war bond, but maybe they were pushed to put this stuff in the superstore and charge a bit of premium pricing on it. Now, another reason I do say that is because there were actually leaks of this war bond, and there was a premium war bond cover page for this. However, now that it's actually launched, it's being called a premium superstore. All right, so that's my thoughts on the war bond. We also got a new stratagem today, which is kind of insane, and it is called the Wasp Launcher. Now, the Wasp Launcher is sort of a pseudo spear. It's like all of the programmable ammo they could have added to the spear, but they just made it its own weapon. Now, it has 2 firing modes. It has a projectile firing mode, and it has a sort of airburst round, but it's called the artillery firing mode. Now, I shot this against the harvesters. It did not seem like, well, first of all, I couldn't even kill one with it. But second of all, it didn't really seem like it had heavy armor pen or anything like that. It seemed more like an airburst round for mobbing. Now, the way this works is exactly like the spear. You have to aim in and lock onto an enemy. Now, it does not lock onto small enemies. It is, however, locking onto the elites that the illuminate have. So I'm assuming that this can lock onto medium-sized enemies and above. It just won't lock onto any of the tiniest mobs. Now, this rocket launcher also has 7 ammo capacity, but you can reload it up to 8 if you reload when you have one ammo left in the chamber. The projectile version of this uses 1 ammo at a time, whereas the artillery, which is the airburst round, it uses the rest of the ammo in your clip. So you can even shoot off a couple burst projectiles, and then you can swap over to the artillery, and unload the rest of them. Now the artillery round, which is like the airburst shot, I'm gonna call it the airburst because it shoots just like an airburst. Not the airburst launcher, by the way. It actually goes into the air and comes down and shoots like an airburst strike. That mode does not seem very good at all, even for mobbing. I was playing with Clay testing this. We team reloaded it. We used it comes with like 4 reserve magazines, basically. We used all 4 of them. I got like maybe 30 kills, and it just does not seem worth it ever for that purpose. Now, the projectile mode of this is actually pretty interesting because it can kill the elites in 1 shot if it happens to headshot them, but usually 2 shots because it ends up hitting them in the body. And that is actually pretty solid. Now, I do think it should get buffed a little bit because we broke the shield of the harvester and we blasted him, and it took almost 2 full magazines. I think it was about a magazine and a half, maybe anywhere between 9 and 12 shots. It did not seem super solid for taking out the harvester just because you have to reload and break the shield twice. So I do think that this possibly needs a small buff. We don't have the data mine stats on it yet, so I really can't look at it and, you know, figure it out in my head and tell you guys. It does seem like it needs a small buff for heavies. However, this is only available on illuminate planets. I did not get to test this against either the bots or the bugs. Now for the illuminate though, it is free right now. Honestly, I will enjoy playing it for the rest of today or however long it's free. It is actually pretty solid because it auto locks onto the jetpack dudes, for example. You fire it twice and then you don't have to worry about that jetpack dude. Now the projectile shots also seem to have some pretty decent splash radius. Like if you hit a melee overseer and there are some zombies around him, it will kill zombies that are in pretty close range to him. So I think the Wasp Launcher is like solid, but I think it does need a small buff because it felt pretty bad against the Harvester. And since it's only able to lock on to medium and heavy enemies, I do think it should be a bit better at taking out the heavier enemies. Like basically, if I had to use the full magazine to kill a Harvester, I think that would be fine. But having to reload and shoot more shots to kill the Harvester feels a little bit bad in my opinion. All right, and I think that is all the news and the updates for today. Let me know what you guys think about this stuff in the comments. Let me know what you guys think about the prices. Now, these are higher prices. Again, I do think that this is because it's a premium crossover. Also, I don't think there's any sort of FOMO or reason to buy this stuff. The assault rifle was pretty mediocre. It did feel really fun to shoot. I do like the sickle. It kind of felt like shooting a sickle. And the armor, on the other hand, it did actually seem pretty decent, like maybe a 7 or 8 out of 10 if you are running gas and fire loadouts, because you will be able to survive both of those. You still will have to chug through stims, and it does allow you to survive like a Tesla tower, at least 1 hit from it. And like I said, with these prices, if you don't like the higher prices, then do not buy them, because like I said, every video game company keeps stats of this stuff. I say the same thing when like new games come out and there's pre-orders. I always say do not pre-order. The only reason I buy this stuff or pre-order is because I can make YouTube videos out of it. Like literally, when I spend money on this stuff and I post a YouTube video out of it, I profit. So I have a real reason to, you know what I mean? Now, if you just like this stuff and you want to support Arrowhead, go ahead and pay for it. I think as long as these higher prices did not, wasn't the new normal and it didn't come to the normal superstore, then hopefully it's not too big of a deal. However, at the same time, if they end up adding a very, very powerful weapon, then people will get FOMO and, shelling out 600 super credits, that's like 60% of the war bond. I just don't feel like the value is really there for that, even if it was a really powerful weapon. And there is a page 2 coming, so we will get a second page of probably premium pricing. And like I said, this honestly has Sony written all over it. They've had a pretty bad year, and it was a Sony IP they're collaborating with. So let me know all your guys' thoughts in the comments. I'll be sure to read them and check them. And I'll see you guys in the next one. I'm out.